Right, it's Rod here. We're still into the viral. We're just going to listen to this, how the UK is doing.
A few interesting things here. We know this is a massive underestimate. It's 10 or 20 times that. The testing here is lamentable. Doubling time is every 3 to 4 days. But again, we expect this to start reducing now because the lockdown effect will start to work. So it will go on increasing for a few days, deaths will go on increasing for a few days, but then the lockdown measures will start to work, and we will, I firmly believe, see a reduction in this next week. I'm afraid that's true. Temporary morgue set up. Elective surgery suspended for 3 months. We've talked about the effect of people on this when you have to cancel the surgery. It's just awful. 181 deaths yesterday. So deaths are increasing, as we said, and this is going to carry on rising until we get the benefit of the effect of the lockdown. 6,000 people being treated in hospital. Now, my Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, Secretary of Health, Matt Hancock, and the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty. Well, Boris has definitely been confirmed as being positive. I'm pretty sure Matt has as well. And Chris Whitty is self-isolating. It's. I'm not criticising my leaders any more than anyone else, but I remember there was a question in Parliament a few weeks ago, and someone was standing up, and they were saying something like, I don't want to get them wrong, but they're saying something like, "We believe in the democracy of this House. Can you give assurances that you will rule out the cancellation of Parliament?" As if it was a human decision. We're up against the rules of biology here. We can't say, well, this virus is a bit inconsistent with my way of life, I'm not going to accept that. No, I'm afraid biology dictates to us, and we have to follow its dictates. The idea that you can change things because you don't like them is ridiculous. So that we have to fight the biology of this virus at the moment. That's what we absolutely have to do.
This raises an interesting point. I'll just pause there for a minute. So the big cities like New York and New Orleans and powerful countries like America, in the 1929 share market crash and depression of the 1930s, early 1930s, a lot of the people that had come into the big cities had left rural locations. They had their own bedrooms, their beds, their wardrobes and stuff, and they just said goodbye mum and dad, and then they went off to make their fortune into the big cities. So when the depression actually happened, they were able to leave the city and go back to the farm, collect the eggs, milk the cows, and it really had a cushioning effect on what happened. What's presently happened, and I'll give you an example, Indonesia had 90% people who were farm workers, and over a 50-year period that changed, and so 90% of the people were in the cities and only 10% were on the farm. In America at the moment it's like 3% of the population does the farm work, and it's all big mechanised stuff. You can't just go back and collect the eggs and milk and stuff. So with this pandemic, it's yes, we can lock up and that sort of thing, but we don't have the cushioning effect that we had there. So it's going to be very hard on large populations, and smart people will live rurally and locally. So here in Tokoroa, there's about 12,000 people that live here. Back in the old days, 1,000-year village was a Saxon village, has about 300 people in it, little walkways, so for 8 minutes the human brain gets bored for any more than walking for 8 minutes. So from one side of the little village to the other you could walk, and it was 8 minutes wide if you like, next to running water, and had peach groves. And so this whole use of oil and coal and nuclear has allowed these huge cities to build up. And so naturally, for the last however many 200,000 years of human IQ in the current form, if you like, 200,000 years. And so we've had cataclysmic events happening on the planet, and has the sea levels, for example, 14,000 years ago to 12,000 years ago, the sea level was 125 metres lower than it is. So the maximum thaw that happened 14,000 years to 12,000 years ago would have been, say, like in a lifetime of a person of 70 years, they'd probably seen the maximum thaw, but sea level go up a metre in 70 years. But over that 2,000 years it had risen. So anyway, I'm just giving you a bit of a background to the science of it.
Now, another example, the 11th of March, the budget in my country, the House of Parliament was absolutely crammed full. People cheek by jowl, absolutely next door to each other, crammed together. And I've been warning about this for weeks before. It's not as if this wasn't known. And it's not, I'm not just picking out the UK Parliament, it's everywhere around the world. Politicians just haven't got it. They've been too late. People are paying with their lives because of the political delays everywhere. Thousands of patients expected over the next few weeks.
And just pause again there. That's the other thing that, for me, 16 or 18 years ago was when I understood and knew the dilemma that, heading towards 10 billion people on the planet, that there were these bottlenecks and the use of fossil fuels and oil and to build these big cities. So that's, for me, it's been almost 2 decades knowing that this would happen. And what I've actually found is in the last 10 years here is there's a real antithesis with regards to engagement in the political process. It's become, if you like, so polarised in that. And even the other day when I went to speak to full council, when there was only 2 confirmed cases in New Zealand, just to reiterate what I'd said back in the SARS days of 16 years ago to the elected member, there was a person who wanted to shut me down and for 5 minutes and not even let me speak. Hello, Deputy Mayor. So just the antithesis that happens out there in the community, and I don't want to be personal, but it's right throughout the planet. And so I'm speechless at the moment.
Drive-through testing for virus testing for key workers, which is encouraging. We are stepping up the testing now, but it cannot come quick enough.
But full credit to the Mayor, Jenny Shattuck. She said, no, let Rod have his 5 minutes. I want to hear what he has to say. So I will, I just wanted to acknowledge that I did get my 5 minutes. I did video it. I did put it up online. I did make it available through YouTube. So I have made the comments about the water supply and the people keeping it running so that the other councils have a heads up and are getting, this guy's brilliant. This is why he should be knighted. And I'm just advocating that. And so good on the Deputy Mayor for being stood down by the Mayor so that I could have my public forum of 5 minutes speaking. I was the only person, and they've since shut it down after that because the next council meeting was held public excluded. And so it's been suspended indefinitely. So I was the last person as the door slammed after what I had to say, which was basically just a public health message. It was to the council, and so for the last 2 decades. So lots of public policy have been led far Australia on the planet, and I think now we're going to have individuals like this who are going to say, look, here's the science of it, and we're going to mould our public policy around science and maths from now on, and just, question the ideologies. Jordan Peterson brought up a beautiful thing. It's called the Pareto distribution. You've got 10,000 people, 100 people write the music, half of the music, and of that 100 people, square root of 100 is 10. 10 of them will do half of that music again. So the Pareto distribution is a very important natural phenomenon to understand, just like the bell-shaped curve for IQ or leaf length. So anyway, I'll